Hi everyone, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room, guys. I hope you're doing well today. Humphrey is still crowned by the sun. Humphrey the dromedary is a happy dromedary today. But more seriously, I'm going to be responding to a comment. I'll read the comment to you. This is from Crystalline Rose, and it really touches the heart of a core theme in my new book and in my current thinking, which in fact is just to a large extent the progression of thinking that has been developing in my mind for a long time now, which is the celebration of the normal INFJ, right? The everyday INFJ, who is by far the majority among INFJs, and whose enemy, so to speak, is the mythologized INFJ that we are fed by the subculture in the INFJ, or rather the personality community. So we'll look first at what Crystalline Rose is saying, and then I want to sort of answer and sort of illustrate what I mean by the normal everyday INFJ and what his enemy or her enemy is. Of course, you can get my book on the INFJ, the Ecstatic Soul. Link is below if you want to have a deep understanding of the type. Check out the reviews. It's less than $10, and it's like I said, it's one of the reference works on the type. You can also get my book, The Infinite Castle, which is a novel. Less than $10 as well. Look at this nice product. You can get it for your granny's birthday, or for your daughter's birthday, or for your uncle's birthday. Who knows? Kafka, Dostoevsky, Murakami, like these names. Main characters in INFJ apparently. So check it out. And there's my Patreon page here that free members are continuing to join, which is great, but please consider supporting me. Even a small amount a month makes a big difference. So here is what our friend Crystalline says. Okay, I'll read her comment. It's a little bit long, but it won't take too long for me to read. So she addresses me directly. I don't know if you've addressed this before, but I was curious, she says, what you thought of the common trope in the INFJ community online about INFJs knowing others better than that person knows themselves. There seems to be this idea that INFJs have superpowers. Sure, INFJs tend to be good at reading other people, but I think it goes way too far to say they know others better than that person knows themselves. I mean, how do you even know that? I just feel that online INFJs are portrayed as these mystical creatures that can read minds and tell the future, and it seems so many INFJs, and perhaps mistyped INFJs as well, believe this stuff. Perhaps I'm wrong, but I don't believe this stuff, and it frustrates me how much this idea gets perpetuated online. I don't think this helps INFJs because I think it feeds into the idea that people are just pretending to be INFJs because of how special and rare it is. All right, so that's our friend Crystalline's comment. Really good comment, and let's talk about it. So let's react to that comment. I think that Crystalline is 100% correct in everything she's saying. Could be why I selected this particular comment, because I agree with it from beginning to end. And there's quite a bit to unpack here. I have meditated for years now against this mythologized view of the INFJ, and no doubt it is possible to refer to my previous videos on that topic, my previous content in general, because I think in a certain sense, every single one of my videos has a way of trying to debunk, diffuse, and counteract this trope, this myth. You can also refer, of course, to my book, The Ecstatic Soul, which has as one of its goals to attain to the most correct possible understanding of INFJ consciousness, which inevitably leads to the debunking of that myth as well, because the ordinary INFJ is the purpose of this book of the Ecstatic Soul. Is like, what is an ordinary INFJ like, and in what way is he or she similar to other ordinary INFJs, right? What is it that link them to each other? And it's certainly not the things that are mentioned in the trope that Crystalline is telling us about. What, if you like, the mythologized INFJ is an enemy of the ordinary INFJ. I don't think that the mythologized INFJ is necessarily an enemy of the mistyped INFJ. And in fact, I would even go so far as to say that the mythologized INFJ is not necessarily an enemy of all INFJs. And here's what I mean by this. In the population of people who identify as INFJ as of right now, okay, there are people who might not really identify as INFJ in a few weeks' time. Either they will be identifying as something else, they'll have found that they really are something else, a different type, or they'll have simply moved on. You know, their interest in the type will have evaporated in some fashion or other. So, if you like, this category of people, this latter category of people is a category of people who just engage in personality type a little bit like a short-lived vanity project. I don't think that, and I've thought about this before, I don't think that you can hold on to such a very painfully obvious and exaggerated mythology for a long period of time without getting bored. You get bored of it partly because eventually just, you have to come to terms with the fact that you don't really believe it. It flatters a sense of vanity, but it offends your common sense. So eventually you just have to force yourself to admit you don't believe it, and so you move on. Like another possibility is that you never took it that seriously in the first place. Sometimes we just, across the day, sometimes it's about looking at your horoscope, or it's about doing some other kind of personality test or whatever. We like to sort of, do these kind of slightly silly tests that are flattering in some way or other. We don't take them that seriously, and we, and just, within a few days' time, someone tells us, so what was your type again? And you can't even remember that. We all know people who are like this. They're common, and we should not underestimate just how many there are who just typed INFJ and were attracted to this description, and then they moved on because, if you like, they know it's not. They know it cannot really be once they scrutinize it a bit further, but also it's boring. It's boring because it's repetitive. And it's repetitive because once you've said all these mythical things, well, there's only a certain number of mythical things that you can say about the INFJ before you start repeating yourself. I mean, you can't say that the INFJ possesses all the mythical characteristics and skills and abilities. So, the descriptions and inevitably restrict themselves to what Kristen is talking about. So, the ability to know people better than know themselves, the ability to predict the future, to have mystical visions, and all that, and so it's this constantly repeated trope. It's tiring. Even someone who wants to believe it will just get tired. It's too simplistic, and it's very, 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 very much falling short of doing justice to the rich and very diversity of INFJs there are in the realm of ordinary INFJs. Okay, so in a sense, I guess the message I have here is that mostly the trend, okay, of this mythical INFJ thing is less dangerous, I think, having thought about it a lot, than it appears. Because really the audience that it targets is a huge but very disloyal audience. It's very massive because the sense of vanity can be piqued. Anyone's across the world, can have their sense of vanity piqued like that. But at the same time, it's very disloyal because people just move on, right? So you'll never have serious commitment to these views on the part of people. It's true that there is a small subsection of INFJs that might be susceptible to it. people who are, let us say, genuinely INFJ, and for whatever reason, they do want sincerely to engage with descriptions of the INFJ type. They want to dig deep, but they encounter this mythology, and for some reason they take it, they subscribe to it, and they forgive. Their intellect and wisdom forgives or forgets the fact that it's ultimately very limiting, shallow, and constantly repeating the same set of themes ad infinitum in this very arid and sterile fashion. But here, what this suggests is that these, I think a small subsection of INFJs, relatively small subsection of INFJs, if they fall under the spell of that set of descriptions, it probably means that they have a vulnerability somewhere in the first place. They have a strong identity seeking dimension that comes from a lack of a hole somewhere that they feel is not really whole. They're looking for an anchoring of their identity, and they find it in that. Or they're also susceptible to the way in which INFJs are described by other types. And this is a theme that I discuss in my future book. So I will refer you again and again to that future book if you want a more elaborated exploration of this topic, because I think that sometimes INFJs work against themselves, because although they know that they are infinitely varied within their sub-region of personality types, they sense that when they interact with other types are focused on the diversity of their own types, but they tend to often fall under the same spell by the INFJ that those small subsections of INFJ fall under. So they tend to see the INFJ type as an exception among all the different types, and as having these special characteristics, which then they consider are, for some reason, very poorly exemplified in everyday INFJs. And INFJs suffer from that kind of comparison, and from that, what they feel to be an altered and hurt sense of status in the type community, as if they were falling short of the ideal that they are supposed to embody. This doesn't necessarily come from INFJs in the first place. It often comes from the views of other people, whether real views or perceived views that they are perceived by INFJs to hold. So interestingly, in one way, you could argue that the real nemesis, when it comes to the description that Crystalline is making here, is not the effect that these mythological descriptions have on INFJs, but it's what real INFJs think the effect of those descriptions are on people of other types, which then ends up reflecting on how they treat the INFJs. It's a complicated sentence, replay it if you need to, but that's actually fundamentally one of the points I make, and I explore that to a large extent in chapter 5 of my upcoming book. Okay, I guess I will treat you and even tell you what the current working title is. It's called Mind and Persona. Chapter 5 of my next book, sequel of the Ecstatic Soul, Mind and Persona. And I discuss in a very great deal of detail and depth a lot of the questions that are raised here by Crystalline. Okay, so hopefully, that was an interesting conversation in praise of the ordinary INFJs that really have a lot of issues to deal with in the world like other people, but one of those issues is the weight of the mythological INFJs. To what extent is this real, and in what ways can it really be a nemesis? I address some of this here, and like I said, I will address more of it in my book. Okay, until then, guys, I'll see you at the weekend. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.